All right. So
Does the red dot mean it's on?
it's definitely okay. So we're here today to talk about hypnotism and identity. We have Logan Garcia, a certified hypnotist. Do you want to introduce yourself, Logan?
I'm Logan Garcia, and I am a certified hypnotist.
Is that it?
That's all I got. Psych major, philosophy minor. I've been certified hypnotist for 2 years now. 2.5 years now, I think. Almost 3, I think, give or take. Yeah, I'd say 2.5 years. And then I first was interested in it when I was a lot younger, and my dad took me to a magic show, and I liked the concept of magic. I thought that was very cool. As a kid, that's about as far as that went. And then as I got older, I kind of liked the idea of like modern day mysticism and like why do people not understand these things better? And so I learned to be a hypnotist, and then a hypnotist came to my psych class at some point in time, and he just did as like a little show, like this is what we do, and that was in high school. It was a long time ago, like junior year of high school for me. I'm a sophomore now in college, so that does make it a while. And then, like shortly after that, I was like, I'm gonna learn this. Can't be that hard. So,
And how did you become certified?
there's a college.
Sounds like I'm asking you why you're insane. Anyways, sorry.
There's a college in Orange County, California, called HMI Hypnosis Motivation Institute, and they have an online beta system for like figuring out like can you teach people to hypnotize others using an online format. I know they in particular focus on hypnotherapy, which is a big deal, and they're probably like there's actually only one hypnosis like union, which oddly enough kind of determines if you're a real profession or not, and the union represents mainly hypnotherapists because that's become more and more popular, and so it's like the only recognized school of hypnosis in America. So that's cool.
And what's the difference between hypnosis and hypnotherapy again?
Well, I guess for one, you use hypnotherapy is like a psychology session. Like person lays down, you do an induction on them. They go into hypnosis, and then you work on whatever problem they want to work on. I know right now it's really popular to quit like smoking or lose weight, and you focus more on like cravings tend to go away using hypnosis and constantly remembering different ways of doing that instead of you do that kind of hypnotherapy, which tends to be like directly talking to somebody's unconscious mind without like the filters of constantly asking why, so on and so forth. You just directly say it to it. You don't want that craving,
Right.
and you try to hit the things that direct somebody towards smoking, let's say, and then you do that instead of, let's say, in like cognitive behavior therapy. In psychology, you would focus more along the lines of having the person work through their fears about it, or try to come up with a rationality and then a support system, so on and so forth. So there's a whole different like theme to it, but overall it's just like a kind of like a psychology session,
Okay.
give or take.
So there's definitely a difference between a stage hypnotist
Oh yeah, huge difference.
and like a hypnotherapist.
Well, there are different. Well, there's always different personality types. Let's say different. Best way to explain it. There is one of the ways to explain it is a physical and emotional personality trait that goes amongst people. It goes, let's say, from a -1, 0 to a +1. +1 being physical, -1 being emotional type. The physical versus emotional is, let's say, I say the word hot. A person might interpret it the word hot on a physical scale, and they might tend to feel it or have a sense of feeling it, versus the person on the emotional part of the scale will tend to keep it more in an abstract idea. And that's the kind of the big difference. In hypnotherapy, that doesn't matter so much. It matters, that part matters in putting somebody in hypnosis. Past that, it shouldn't matter. It just depends on how you talk to somebody. It becomes a little bit more different. Instead of saying, you feel this, you would say that for physical, and for like the emotional type, you'd say, you might start to feel this, or you suggest more than you command.
So you would say some people, we remember things differently?
Oh yeah. Like, well, it's not just remembering, it's experience words differently.
Interesting.
Yeah, because like, well, whenever somebody says a word, it's going to activate some part of it, some neuron somewhere, so you understand the basics of it. But what are the basics for every person? They might mean something different. Let's say on an extreme scale, let's say a 6-year-old boy has a fear of chairs. As a psychologist, you would look at that and say, well, why do you have a fear of chairs? Maybe they had a bad experience where their, let's say, parent hit them with a chair at some point in time, and this has always stayed in their mind, so on and so forth. So when I say the word chair to that kid, the 6-year-old child in mind, they'll experience a physical sense of that word.
So associate the chair with pain.
Now imagine that on much like a lifestyle. So a person tends to experience everything more physically versus more abstractly.
Okay. And
that's how, like, that determines how a person talks to somebody.
Very recently read like a book, Walking with Einstein, by Gore. He said that there was this man who had like a perfect memory, and it was because like he associated words so much with like colors, and like he actually, when people spoke, he saw colors, so his like senses were screwed up.
That's weird.
Regard. And so it makes me curious how we associate.
Because like, well, like you always have to keep in mind that the only way we understand something, or we can even experience anything, is that something physical has to be happening either here or within our spinal cord. Without those, nothing's going to happen, but something like has to actually exist.
Okay, so what is your personal definition of hypnosis?
Personal definition. Well, it's a state of mind. Step 1. State of mind.
Step 1.
And it is a defining point where a person has moved from using their conscious mind to focusing on using their unconscious mind.
Okay.
Or not unconscious, I want to say subconscious mind, but the more accurate term would be the non-conscious mind. Somewhere between subconscious and non-conscious. It's a really blurry subject right now. The thing about that is the way to tell the difference, and this does depend on if you tend to be more of an abstract or physical experiencer, is imagine you have like a big web of information right here. And that's if you look around a room, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What are you thinking about at the time? What are you associating? All of this stuff's going on. And then you have a filter. And this filter is saying, well, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need to remember that, I don't need this, I don't need this, well, I definitely need to remember that, or I don't need this, I don't need this, well, there's a knife over there, I should probably remember that, oh, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, that person's cute, I'm going to take that in. And it just, filters out only what you think you might need. And this filter has been practiced, so on and so forth, and it's changed gradually. And then you have the subconscious mind, or your long-term memory, or what have you. And this part, which you can't normally directly speak with, everything has to go through this filtering process. What hypnosis does is it's focusing a lot more of the commands to go through that filter much more easily.
Okay.
So instead of somebody recalling the idea of them dancing like a chicken, instead of that filter being like, I don't want that, kick it out, it's going to accept that command and then release it from long-term memory into more of a working style. So that would be hypnosis. That filter is broken down and that those commands are going through, or suggestions.
So, how do you go about putting someone into this hypnosis?
Well, it depends a lot on the personality type. There's a lot of tricks that telling what kind of personality type a person is. That's a big deal in stage hypnotism, is learning tricks. That's actually one of the biggest differences between hypnotherapy and stage hypnotism, is like it's a tricks of the trade kind of thing. Like the term donkey originally comes from vaudeville magicians. That just, then I told you what donkey is.
Say it again for the...
Hello. Donkey is a person that has either been placed in the crowd before everything has started, and they already know, like they're acting to convince everybody else that something is real, which in turn leads everybody else to think that it could happen to them, or it's getting a person and doing something that they might think is hypnotism. You can claim it's hypnotism, but it's just a trick of the trade, like sleight of hand, except for hypnotisms, which I think is perfectly ethical.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's a vaudeville thing.
Do you think we put ourselves into a hypnosis like every day? Just like
All the time. I know, for example, I longboarded from the sub to here, which is only like a direct path 50 yards. So let's say I longboarded for 70 yards, taking corners and stuff on a sidewalk. I can remember, like I can specifically remember like doing a couple things, but I can't remember like every house that I passed by. I can't remember all of that. So there's definitely some things I've forgotten. Ooh, but I bet if I went back through it, I'd be able to remember certain things again, but then I'd lose it again. That is kind of a state of hypnosis, just because you aren't remembering something, but you're still taking on this action. So your non-conscious, subconscious mind is still telling you directly, do this. And your body's not like, yo, I don't need to do that. It's just like, okay, that makes sense.
So like when you read a book or drive a car or watch a movie or mow the lawn.
I know one of my favorite examples is, this happens to everybody. You'll be like just about to go to sleep or something, and you'll start like dreaming or fantasizing, pick your choice. And let's say a common one is people will be running. They're running, or they're trying to do something that requires like leg movement, and their leg twitches. Their leg moves. That's a physical response to their mind having this idea constantly go through it.
My dog does that.
Dogs do it all the time. Actually, awesome vaudeville trick that used to be popular in the 50s, ducks. Hypnotizing a duck. I don't know how they did it, and I'm trying to find like research on it. It's actually, I was in the library a couple days ago looking on it, but it used to be really popular to hypnotize ducks.
I didn't know you could hypnotize animals.
Nor did I. Well, I vaguely knew about it, and that's kind of how it started. Cause a bunch of guys. It was actually, I think it's Romania, is where some of the original hypnotism, like some like stage hypnotism and stuff like that, became more popular, and then transferred to America.
Okay. So, what kind of things can you make people do when they're hypnotized?
LOL. Well, let's see, what did I do Monday night? A couple nights before Monday night, I hypnotized somebody, and one of the things I told him was, I had him imagine the top of a tree, a very large leafy tree, and the top of the leaf starts falling, and I count from 10 down to 1, and all the leaves are going to slowly start falling, following that first leaf, and at 1, all these this huge wave of leaves is just going to hit him, And then right when that happens, he's going to go to a place that makes him really happy. Whatever that place is, this place can only make him bliss and happy. There is no negative that he can think of. Now this person was very physical, so I told him like he cannot do that. I'm not suggesting it or being like hinting that you can let yourself go to this place. I'm saying this is your only option. I count down, and afterwards when I bring him out of hypnosis, I asked him where was this place, and he said when the leaps hit him, he fell down on a pile of snow on a hill. And he thinks that it actually originally came from a memory of him learning how to snowboard, and he fell onto this thing of snow, and he could just barely hear snowflakes. Now in this blissful world, when the leaves hit him, he fell down onto a large mountain of snow, and he can hear each individual snowflake one at a time, even though they're all falling at the same time. Mm-hmm. He could hear all of that, and that was all that he could hear. But it wasn't like lots of sound going on. It was everything was very individual within a large realm, and that's all there was. He didn't mention anything about the sky, so I'm assuming that simply didn't exist, or trees around him. They didn't exist. Only like this pleasant, cold feeling, and these snowflakes, and that made him absolutely happy. So that's something that he did. Another one I made somebody do was this is one called the math competition. And what you do is you tell one person, I had 4 people recently, and I told one person whenever I ask them a math question, they answer the word 69. Every time, doesn't matter what math question, 69, always answer that. And so I asked the first 3 people, 1 plus 1, 2. 2 plus 2, 4. Next person, 3 plus 3, 6. I asked the last person, what is 4 plus 4? 69. Everyone kind of looks around, and they're all like happy, and then they look around at everyone else and they notice the 69 person's getting looked at, and they're like, huh. I'm like, okay. I hypnotize or put everyone back under, and then I tell 2 people that whenever I ask them a problem, they'll say 2. The second person, I told them whenever I ask a problem, they'll say 3. The third person, they were still to say 69, and the fourth person, whenever somebody said the wrong answer, they would raise their hand and say the correct answer. Oh my god, somebody recorded it, and it was hilarious. I asked them, what is 11 minus 1? 10. Pretty easy. Most people should be able to get that as long as they understand, base 10. And it was hilarious. They were literally like screaming at each other, throwing pillows. They were committed that their answer was the most correct. Oddly enough, the person that was raising their hand, telling them that it was wrong, was just as committed and telling them that they were wrong. But because nobody had the same answer, they were all just like, no, it is 3, it is 4, it is 16. Are you guys idiots? They were it was hilarious.
That's really funny.
It was really good. And then I brought them all when I asked them afterwards what they thought, like what they remembered, and the 69 person said that she remembered that she was right without a doubt, and that everybody else was dumb for getting such a easy math question wrong.
Huh.
So that was a good one. I know another one that I did, which is called a shock induction. Induction is a point in which somebody goes from just conscious to hypnosis. This girl was like super physical personality traits. So there's this thing called shock induction that was actually designed in like World War II or something by some random hypnotist. But it's a really fast, really abrupt, which if someone's been hypnotized before, it works on. And he found out that when somebody had been hurt in combat, if he hypnotized them, he couldn't do it over a short period of time. If he did it really quickly, though, they would feel no more pain. If he just told them, you no longer feel pain. Mm-hmm. This has been researched a lot. If you hypnotize somebody, say they don't feel pain, you can literally just stab them a bunch and they will not react at all. That's something I've done, is I told somebody they feel nothing in their hand, absolutely nothing, and I could pinch them as much as I want, and nothing would happen. They wouldn't move. They wouldn't twinge at all.
That's weird that you could just turn off pain like that.
I know, and some of the researches I've seen is when they told somebody that about the hand, they would stab them with needles. like in different places all over their hand, and they wouldn't respond, or in their like neck or anywhere on their body, basically. And they wouldn't respond if they said, you do not feel any pain.
So, like, I always think of, like, pain as physical, but maybe it's entirely mental.
Well, you have to look at it like, who were hypnotized weren't showing any signs of pain. They don't recall any amount of pain. What they do know is that when they woke up, they might feel pain in their hand because they were just getting stabbed a bunch. And I mean, they might even have little, like, tiny blood spots, and they'd be like, well, that probably hurt. But at the time, they weren't showing any signs of pain, which might be a measurement problem, but still, it might be a very mental thing.
Like, I know I hear about, I've never been in a fight, but, like, when your adrenaline's going, like, once you get into, like,
you
don't feel the pain until afterwards.
Yeah, you do. Like, you could take a complete wallop to the stomach, and you might feel like a loss of breath, but depending if you're still ready to keep going, you won't feel a sense of pain.
Right.
Unless, of course, you, like, break something that takes you out of that sense of go, 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 which coincidentally might be hypnosis.
Out of curiosity, what do you peg my mental...
Emotional type, or...
Yeah.
I'd say you're probably emotional type. I don't know how much. You can find out.
How do you... Okay, well, maybe later. Okay, so what can't you make people do?
You cannot make somebody... Well, right now, the leading idea on it is that... Now, I haven't obviously experimented too much with it, because I feel like there are certain things I don't want somebody to do. You cannot make somebody do something that even their subconscious, non-conscious mind thinks is wrong. Even if you get rid of a filter, it's still wrong for that person. The most basic form of this is suicide. Nobody's going to commit suicide. This has been done in tons of labs where they would hypnotize somebody, give them a fake gun, or a gun with no bullets or something, and ask them to kill themselves. And nobody ever would. There's under no circumstances is somebody going to kill themselves.
Even if the person was suicidal when they were...
That has not been tested. As far as I know. I haven't seen the exact data on that part. Yeah. But I'm super curious. If somebody is suicidal, it would depend on their reasons too. Now, let's say, during the time of a lot of this research, it's still considered unethical to do research on people who are depressed. Because, you don't know some of the side effects, and it does make a really odd audience to look at, or participant problem. But I know I personally think that if somebody truly was okay with killing themselves, they could. Getting somebody to that point is difficult. A lot of suicides are for attention. Just the reasons for suicide tend to differ. Mm-hmm. But why do they occur? Let's say for females, the most common reason for suicide is related to social status. For males, it tends to be because of relationship statuses. Those are the most common suicide reasons for those particular sexes. And that is heterosex. I'm not looking at the otherwise. So they might be doing it for the attention of that sake, for a way to get out of those situations that they're in, but it's not necessarily that if I were to give them a magic bean and say, eat this, this will make your situation go away, they eat the bean before they kill themselves. So maybe their desire to kill themselves isn't the number one thing. So even those people might not do it. However, there are cases where you do have, let's say, a manic depressant where they're like, yeah, I'd be fine with killing myself. For example, let's say somebody has a terminal illness. They're Oregon and Washington. It's okay if somebody kills themselves. Because that's what they absolutely want.
I'm curious, can you make somebody be, gay?
So my better friend, John Bishop...
Yeah.
I did that to him. It was pretty funny.
But, is he actually gay, or is he just acting gay?
He's very much so heterosexual, while he's conscious. The thing I told him is pretend to be gay and hit on the most attractive man in the room. And so he walked up to my friend Einer, who was there at the time, and started hitting on him. And he played a fantastic game. It was extremely flamboyant. He was taking both of their shirts off at the time. Like his hand was doing, like, it was so stereotypical of a homosexual concept.
Right.
But I told him, act gay. Now, let's say I said you are gay. There's a slight difference. I went with act gay because it seemed like a more reasonable one. I wanted to get the expression out more. For me, it was more important to get him acting than it was to get him being. Just because as a show, it's more important, and people aren't going to catch on those like one word, like acting.
So, could you get a guy to think he was a woman, or a woman to think?
Oh, I've done that one. That's hilarious. You can get sexes to change in people, or at least for them to act like it. You don't necessarily. I could say everybody in the room that thinks themselves as a girl is now a man, and everybody in the room that thinks themselves a man right now is a woman. Now, this is going to change every time I touch my chin.
This is funny.
And so what I could do is, let's say I'd be doing something else completely different. Like, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Let's say a muscle match or something like that. And if I touch my chin, everyone's going to completely act differently every time I do it. And it's a really funny one to do because it puts a spin on every different skit I do. So yeah, you can change somebody's concept of sexuality. Now, that isn't necessarily to say like what they truly are interested in sexually. Now, let's say you are talking like specifically not like a gender concept, but like a sexuality. Are you interested in male or female? I haven't explored that much in that one. I've never really had the opportunity to.
What if you just like act like
you're really into somebody?
No. Act like if I was a hypnotist and you were the person I was not. What if I'm like act like Logan Garcia? Would that also make them just act normal? Like
they probably wouldn't get it. I'm guessing. Or yeah, I'm guessing. Like that'd be like if I told you right now, act like Nick.
Right.
What would you do?
I'd act like myself. But
exactly.
But if you were like in a state where like you were subconscious, and you're like, so act like Nick Axline, and so then the person started acting like Nick Axline, or what if you're like, so act like Logan Garcia.
You could try that. What I'm gonna guess is if I just said act like
your pet dog.
If I said act like your pet dog, they would act like their pet dog, whatever they thought of that. Now, let's say I said imagine the most true form of yourself, and then I told them act like that person, or act like that, or act like what you wish you were. I feel like it would be a little bit of a confusing question to ask somebody to do. Like it's a kind of an ambiguous command, act like Nick, act like Logan.
Right.
But if I were to give them more of a goal, they would understand that better.
Why do you think it's so easy for people to put themselves in that role? Like, why is it so easy for us to act like something we've never been a dog. We've never been like.
Well, we'll speak for yourself.
Yeah, we've never been the opposite sex, or we've never experienced these things, but yet we still can so relate to it that we can act like it. Like it's a role that we play almost.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what you're asking is, how do we? Why can we become like, or at least act like what we've seen or experienced before?
Or how is it that we can? Yeah, how can we do it even?
Like how can we even?
Why is it so easy? I guess. Yeah. Why is it easy?
Why is it so easy for somebody to act like they're a dog, even though they probably have nowhere near the same mindset or mental capabilities or limitations as a dog? Because we watch dogs, as far as I know, any mammal has the ability to mimic other animals. Most primates are exceptionally good at it. Mm-hmm. Dolphins has pretty good capabilities.
What if you're act like the sun?
Sun. I bet if you
act like a rock.
Let's say I told somebody to be a rock. I bet if they weren't trying to be the actor, and shooting guns or something, or driving fast cars, they would probably like huddle down and not move, or try not to move.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to them, they would say, "Shh, I'm being a rock." Yeah, I bet that would happen. If that was the case, well, for one, humans have the obvious ability. We can learn from things we see. That's classic Bobo doll experiment, 70s. We learn from other things we see. Great adaptation we have. It's super useful. Great plan. Great survival plan, guys. So we can definitely learn from something else. Like if I said, act like that chair or something. Well, like, let's take that chair, Bolden chair. I know that it's a Bolden chair. I know it's not moving. I could try to, do this. I'm being the chair. That's my concept of it. That is my abstract definition of what that chair existing is as. I mean, obviously I can't replicate the color or anything like that, but that's because I'm limited by my acting skills. But I mean, whenever we take in an object, we obviously I can't physically put that chair in my mind. I have to make it into a neuron impulse. And by doing that, I make it into an abstract concept, putting it into working memory or long-term memory, depending, and then recalling it again. And then I say, okay, I'm going to do that. So that's why we have, a rock is a great example just because it's such a basic idea of something. Now, let's say I told somebody to act like, let's say I told somebody to act like, what's a funny one? Give me an actor's name. Preferably a funny one or a popular one. Gerard Butler. There you go.
Yeah, okay, 300 version.
300. See, that was the first thing that came to your mind. What else comes to your mind when I say Gerard Butler? Go. Just say everything. Colors, words, anything that has to do with anything of Gerard Butler. The first thing that came to your mind was 300.
Yeah.
What do you think of him as 300?
Badass.
He's badass. What does he have?
A beard.
He has a beard. He's badass and he has a beard and he has his face.
Like mascara.
When he smiles, he does this.
Yeah.
He has mascara. He has muscles on top of his muscles.
He's like a cod piece, probably.
Oh yeah, nice. That's the only reason that thing's going down is because his penis goes down there. He's the definition of man as true Spartan, manly, muscly warrior creature. Now, if I told you to act like Gerard Butler, you have that abstract concept. Now, let's say you had only watched The Phantom of the Opera. He's also in that. When I think Gerard Butler, a lot of times I think Phantom of the Opera like this menacing man that's very held back. If someone told me to act like Gerard Butler, I might go cower in a corner and scoot around like this because he's wearing the mask and he's afraid of people. We have completely different abstract representations of Gerard Butler. But if one of us was told to be that person, we're actually going to act like that abstract representation that we've mentally stored.
And it's a perfect image too. When we think of an image, it's a perfect symbol for it, I think. Gerard Butler, you don't think about his personal life or... No,
I have no idea what he's done.
You think of this masculine dude, perfect specimen of man, and that's him to us. And I think, when you meet a celebrity, if you ever meet a celebrity, you're kind of wow, you're a lot shorter.
Yeah, you're this completely different thing than what I thought you were.
You aren't the abstract god that I thought you were. You were larger than life, but it turns out the man behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm. And then you're this weird changed idea.
Yeah.
And that just re-fences your idea.
Celebrities, I think, are ideas.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Modern day gods or something.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a break real quick just so I can see if everything is going all right.
That's probably a really good plan.